It's not that pseudoscience and superstition and New Age so-called beliefs and fundamentalist zealotry are something new. They've been with us for as long as we've been human. But we live in an age based on science and technology with formidable technological powers.
Science and technology are propelling us forward at accelerating rates.
That's right. And if we don't understand it, by we, I mean the general public, if it's something that, oh, I'm not good at that, I don't know anything about it, then who is making all the decisions about science and technology that are going to determine what kind of future our children live in? Just some members of Congress? But there's no more than a handful of members of Congress with any background in science at all. And this combustible mixture of ignorance and power, sooner or later, is going to blow up in our faces. I mean, who is running the science and technology in a democracy if the people don't know anything about it? Science is more than a body of knowledge. It's a way of thinking, a way of skeptically interrogating the universe with a fine understanding of human fallibility. If we are not able to ask skeptical questions, to interrogate those who tell us that something is true, to be skeptical of those in authority, then we're up for grabs for the next charlatan, political or religious, who comes ambling along. Otherwise, we don't run the government runs us.
Flower power grew up, and all through the 70s and 80s, we've had these spiritual leaders writing about love, unconditional this, unconditional that love can fix everything, that all we need to do is love each other unconditionally, and it will all magically work out. Yes, the Beatles quote, all we need is love. It's a nice thought, and it's positive. But there are things that love by itself cannot address. One is we live in a technical society. Our problems are technology issues. Two, it assumes that love can fix capitalism. Well, capitalism is a competitive system contrary to the spiritual beliefs. But yet they think love can heal capitalism. Well, capitalism is not worth saving because it is a competitive structure. It causes humans to fight over money, and it causes nations to fight over resources. How can a world of love come from that? If love is the answer, it seems that love would want to dismantle capitalism and move to a resource-based economy where everybody is loved. And perhaps when you buy one of those spiritual books or a DVD set that tells you love can fix everything, it'll be all right as long as we love each other, maybe that money is going straight into the corporate structures, the stuff that needs to be dismantled so we can be happy. Could it be those feel-good books of spirituality actually support the same system that is suppressing us? Here's a crazy idea. Maybe those books are a product of capitalism to make us feel good in capitalism. But I think we're learning capitalism doesn't feel good. Neither does the love it produces. It's rather simple, really. Love needs a better game plan. Since we live in the technical age, the application of love without science and technology will have very little effect on the environment. And the opposite would be true. Science and technology can make love concrete instead of just an idea in the mind. Could it be that love is the application of science and technology that actually comes from our soul?
You know, thought is frequency. Thought has a frequency that enters the world. And there's bandwidths. When people join a thought process, it creates a bandwidth. I can explain it like this. The biggest bandwidth, the biggest frequency of thought is religion. I mean, religion is everybody most of the world pretty much believes in a religion, Islamic or Christian. It's a huge bandwidth of thought of a God, hell, heaven, devil. Billions of people are involved in that thought, that frequency of thought. So it's a very heavy energy on Earth. Now, a lot of people have graduated out of that and into spiritual thought. So it's a smaller bandwidth, but it has graduated into a loving God or a loving universe. They believe in the perhaps reincarnation, a non-judgmental approach to other humans, a loving approach, minus the judgment. Some spiritualists believe in the law of attraction, that when you become enlightened, that the world becomes abundant to you, and you gather material, you gather wealth, you gather nice homes and cars and stuff like that. The spiritual thought is actually very dangerous because it teaches the mind to accept the world, to accept reality unconditionally, to love it, to accept it. I mean, a spiritualist can walk by a homeless person and look at that homeless person and go, okay, well, there's some kind of karmic thing happening, and that homeless person is learning from his situation. No, what he's learning is there's a human being walking past this human that is homeless and is apathetic to that human, that's not offering help, that is not taking him down to the store to buy him a sandwich. That's what the homeless person is learning. He's learning the apathy of a spiritual, enlightened person who was walking by and has judged the situation as some karmic play playing out so he can learn. That's how twisted spirituality is. Spirituality has become this lollipop bubble of love in the head that is ignoring reality. They live for the self. It is of ego. It's not real, because here's the truth. Compassion is not a thought in your head. It's not a prayer. It's not a wish. It's none of that. Compassion is an action through the heart. Compassion only enters the environment through an action, not the thought that says, yeah, brother, I love you. Man, I hope you work it out. I know you're going through some difficult shit. No. But I love you? That's compassion? No, that's bullshit thought of love in your head and a nice little cocoon that is just ignoring reality, and accept that reality out there with unconditional love. It's not that intelligent, because it doesn't really, it professes to care for the whole with love, but there's no action in it, because it's self-love. The highest frequency of thought is the Venus Project. Very few people are thinking it on the planet, but it is the most intelligent thought system. This Venus Project is a thin line of frequency, a thin line of thought that must become wider by more people believing in a resource-based economy that eliminates this wave of thought: money, materialism, capitalism, nationalism. This is a huge thought wave that is suppressing everything. It's suppressing the spiritualists because they're so caught up in their self-love. They don't even know that the capitalism, material, and money is really affecting their consciousness. They can't understand that they are, well, Here you go. Why do you think they write books and produce DVDs? Because they have to make money. And they get involved in capitalism and materialism. And all of a sudden, the law of attraction looks pretty damn good because now I can buy a nice house and a nice car. That's materialism. That's the self saying, I deserve this, I have arrived, I am enlightened, I know what love is. They love to go around and give their little speeches and their little talks and how love can change everything, blah, 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 while totally ignoring the system. The systems that we live. The system is our problem. We are not suffering from a conscious awareness problem. We are suffering from the stuff that we have built together. Our governments, our corporations, the system of money. That's what we're suffering. Because that's all a mental construct. Our hearts know how to love, but our mental constructs suppress compassion from entering the environment. That's what the Venus Project does. It eliminates this bullshit. All of it. It raises into a resource-based economy. Now everybody is taken care of through technology. For the first time in human history, we can physically install compassion on Earth through automation and technology. We don't need thought. We automate our systems. We manage our resources. It's enlightenment for everybody because there's no more class structure. Automation doesn't care about class structure. Automation wants to pump out food for everybody. And because it's a one-time build, we can make it free. We can make food free. See, that's what spiritualists, they can't even arrive to this because they're so caught up in their self. Of focusing in on their self. Oh, I must meditate. I must become love. I must tap into this inner source. Yeah, you can tap into that inner source all you want, but you're still going to live in a system that is stupid. So you're really not attaining higher awareness, higher consciousness, because you can't live that higher consciousness in capitalism. That's what you spiritualists do not see. You are delusional. So all this spiritual stuff that's going on right now, Deepak Chopra, Super Bowl Sunday, The Course in Miracles, one of the worst ones that teaches the lollipop thing of self-love with no action. I mean, the Course actually has a chapter in this that says, you need to do nothing. Don't do anything. Just be love. Well, how does that transfer love into the environment? It doesn't. We're all supposed to sit around and meditate and fill up with love. Okay, that's great. That feels good. But it ends there. Because you're not treating another human with a compassionate action. You're involved in self-love. The Course in Miracles is the worst teacher of this philosophy of doing nothing. You are love. You are perfect. Yeah, your heart is. And you can't fix that mind with love under capitalism, because capitalism will dictate your behavior to money. Because you need money to survive. You need money to put a roof over your head. Your heart can't produce that. So the whole spiritual movement is actually just, it's a better version of religion is what it is, because it's a more loving attitude, it's unconditional love, it's non-judgmental, yeah, it's a little opener and freer, but it really doesn't transfer compassion into the environment. The Venus Project is a complete transfer of compassion into the environment, because we're using technology to build compassionate systems. We're managing Earth through technical means, through science. That will clear our minds of money, materialism, capitalism, and nationalism. Because nationalism is a concept that is completely dividing the human race. It's the division of China, Russia, America, Europe. The division. Nationalism, the concept, is completely eliminated in the Venus Project because we are managing the whole of Earth in a scientific nature that won't harm Earth. What I'm saying is this: the highest version of intelligent thought is the Venus Project that wants to take care of all humanity. How can that not be the most intelligent thought on the planet? A thought that wants to care for every human. Nothing compares to that thought of how to manage the whole world with compassion for all humans. And make it physical, to where it's not in the mind. We walk into compassion every day because the systems we are living are compassionate structures of automation and technology. And that's not to say we're going to start putting on robot arms and chips in our heads. You know, that's just absurd thought. That's not the human body. Your mind really doesn't want to do that. You don't want a doctor operating on your brain and putting a chip in it. No, technology and automation is just going to be the outside structure for humans to walk through and live, so it can free our minds. We won't be deluded with all these other thoughts. You know, I want to jump in here because after I did this video, I came up with a very good way of explaining it. You know, both standard religion and spirituality is actually a way to judge humans. Standard religion will call it sin. Spirituality will say that the human needs to improve their consciousness, their awareness, that they need to raise their level of being. Well, that's still a judgment. The Venus Project has no judgment whatsoever in it because it doesn't look at the human nature of the mind as being the problem. It sees the environment as the problem. A good example is capitalism. The environment of capitalism causes humans to fight for money and nations to fight for money. If we take capitalism out of our environment and replace it with science and technology and automation to where we're sharing Earth's resources, we are no longer fighting. The whole human behavior that is under capitalism disappears because we've improved our environment. I'll give you another good example. You know, I enjoy whiskey over ice, so I like to have a couple of drinks. It's freedom, no big deal. But let's say I get in my car and I start driving, all of a sudden I'm driving drunk. Well, standard religion would call that a sin. Spirituality would say I would have to raise my awareness level. The Venus Project does no judgment whatsoever because it would look at it like a scientific problem. What the Venus Project would do is say, hey, let's build some automated electric vehicles that drive themselves. So when I get in with a couple of whiskeys going through my system, I'm not driving. The vehicle is taking me to where I go, to where I want to go. See, that's a whole different level of thought. There's no judgment towards the human. What we're doing is we're fixing the environment to remove negative human behavior. It makes it impossible for somebody to get in a vehicle and kill somebody because we've taken the scientific approach to human behavior. The Venus Project does not have any human judgment whatsoever. That's why it's a higher frequency of thought.